touchdown has been confirmed at this instant. You'll have to give me a second. We took a power hit here at the studio.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yes. A large, dangerous tornado confirmed on the ground. Again, very near the city of Greensburg.
The tornado is still on the ground in the southeastern part of the city of Wichita. This is about as classic a hook echo as you are ever going to see.
It's often been said that we are in the communications business, but our biggest challenge is communicating. From government officials to private forecasters, everyone has a platform to communicate to the public. But are we doing it effectively when it comes to severe weather? If we trust the source, do we completely understand what to do when our lives are at risk?
That's why we put our man on the street.
And woman.
Man and woman team on the street to interview everyday folks. We ask them a series of questions like, do they understand what watches and warnings mean? And how do they really react when they get the message? You might be surprised when you hear their answers.
We've also brought in a panel of specialists. These three have spent their lives working to make sure the public gets the message. Gary Sikowski had a 35-year career at the National Weather Service. Most recently, he spent 20 years at the Mount Holly Forecast Office. Gary retired in 2016. From the Weather Channel, meteorologist Mark Elliott, and Dr. Susan Jasko, who earned her Ph.D. in Human Communication at The Ohio State University. Since 1998, Dr. Jasko has taught at California University in Pennsylvania. She doesn't have a background in meteorology, but her fresh point of view is why NOAA has utilized her skills for the past 6 years on how weather is effectively communicated.
Our panel doesn't know how our folks on the street will answer our questions, but each will offer their insight on current challenges and how they think we can improve. This is episode 36 of Tornado Talk. I'm warning you.
Let's go out on the streets. We wanted to find out, what does it mean when a severe thunderstorm warning is in effect?
I think it means to be aware that a thunderstorm is going to be in our area.
That there is a storm within my area that could cause potential severe damage, either through wind, hail, or lightning.
That conditions are right for that to happen.
It means that a thunderstorm has been sighted. You're being warned.
Means I better get in the house. There's a storm coming.
That means that a thunderstorm, a severe thunderstorm, is going to be issued in the area.
It means be lookout that there may be severe weather in the area and moving in your direction.
A severe thunderstorm warning is defined as a storm or storms containing winds of 58 miles per hour or higher and or hail 1 inch in diameter or larger. Does the Weather Channel's Mark Elliott think severe thunderstorm warnings are effective in getting the public to take action?
My answer is I hope so, because it's currently the best that we have. Severe thunderstorms are often ignored completely, especially when compared to their tornado warning counterparts. When I'm broadcasting about a severe thunderstorm warning, we even don't necessarily cover every severe thunderstorm warning because they're not all created the same. You know, there are some that just barely meet the criteria and some that are so far beyond the threshold of the, a generic severe thunderstorm that even more would be at play, even more damage, even more destruction. We try to focus on those and at the same point say, every single lightning strike is severe, and lightning's not part of a severe thunderstorm warning.
Dr. Susan Jasko believes how quickly you react is largely based on how much you've been exposed to that type of weather. In other words, if you're all too familiar with a severe thunderstorm warning where you live, you probably know what it means.
One of the key things that I think really research has borne out here, the social scientific research, is that it depends a lot on the geography, where people live and grow up, or where they've been living, so that in areas where weather like severe thunderstorms really requires that people pay attention in order to stay safe, in order to do what they need to do, then people are much more aware of what the terms mean, or at least aware enough so that they know what they need to do in regard to that message. But I think in other parts of the country where that isn't necessarily the case, like, for example, I'm from the Northeast originally. I'm from northeastern New Jersey. I think those terms are less clear to people because they are less dependent on knowing what that stuff means in order to go about their lives. So if I grew up just outside of the New York metropolitan area, and the way I would put it today is that people are just really focused on getting from one place to the next and one task to the next.
But even if you've been born and raised in the plains, you may have to scratch your head to understand the term significant weather advisory. Our roving reporters wanted to find out if everyday folks know what that means.
I've heard of that, and I feel like it's something that we just need to be aware of, that there could be some sort of weather, again, in our area that we need to be watching.
It's notification that something in your area is potentially hazardous. It could be flooding, or it could be other things like ice or severe thunderstorms.
Yeah, I have, but I'm not sure about it.
That it is powerful weather.
I have no clue.
That is just a warning that there will be some weather in the area that is strange or could become severe.
That means that potentially something could arise in your area, and again, just be mindful and safeguard.
Usually, the criteria for a significant weather advisory would be strong thunderstorms where hail and wind threats are just below that of a severe thunderstorm warning. Some national weather services may call them significant weather alerts or special weather statements. Does meteorologist Gary Zakowski believe the public grasps this term?
That was not something that we issued at the Mount Holly office when I was there. So there's some places in the country where the Weather Service is issuing that, and there's other places where they're not. So some people may be aware of it, through some familiarity with the, if they've seen it several times. But heaven help the traveler who's moving through an area and they come across something new that they've never heard of before. They won't know exactly how to handle that. As well as places where it's issued very infrequently.
I think in some ways it's enough to say that, or it helps in that it shows that the National Weather Service is looking at the storm that you are concerned about, and that there are hazards, but they may not meet those severe thunderstorm warning thresholds. It doesn't mean that they don't matter or that they aren't happening. So sometimes the best part of that significant weather advisory is the fact that the National Weather Service is on it, right? You tuned in because of whatever condition you see outside, and you see that they're at least looking at it, and that goes a long way in reassuring the public.
And no matter where we live, we expect all of the media outlets to be on a tornado warning. Our man and woman on the street pose the question, what do you do when a tornado warning is issued?
Go outside in the front yard so I can watch.
Well, I probably shouldn't do this, but the first thing I do is look outside. And if it looks like there actually could be something in my immediate vicinity, I'm going to go under my stairs into my closet. But if it looks like it's not immediate, I'm going to just be very aware of what's going on, make sure my family and my pets are inside, and be ready and prepared to get within that safe place.
Technically, you should go to the center of the building you're in, or the basement, or the lowest point.
Just watch what's going on outside with the weather.
I just start watching, the clouds to see, and I keep listening for more information that might be coming to warn us about any storms.
Try to determine where there's going to be safe shelter during that period of time.
You should keep watching the Weather Channel, watching the TV, and you should be going into a basement and finding some shelter just in case.
As you can tell, everyone on the street had different plans for what to do when a tornado warning is issued. That's one of the reasons the National Weather Service made changes to how they issue tornado warnings by creating a tiered threat level. We know that each tornado warning isn't the same. Therefore, the way it was worded would state whether the threat was radar indicated, an observed tornado, or a catastrophic one that puts life and property in danger. Dr. Susan Jasko says the reaction is again based on where people live.
I think they are probably going to turn out, I think they already have turned out in a lot of ways, to be more effective when they're occurring in communities that, again, are familiar with the problems, created by tornadoes. So, and the emergency managers and other partners of the NWS, for example, they really, I think, benefit a lot from these distinctions being made and that much additional information being conveyed rather concisely, right? To say that a tornado has been radar indicated, if you're an emergency manager and you've been in the business a little bit and you live and work in a tornado-prone area, that's very meaningful information, and really gives them a very good sense instantly about what kinds of reactions and reaction time is really desirable from their point of view. So I think that in those situations, they really will turn out to be extremely useful for communicating concisely and in a very efficient manner.
Because there is that tiered level, I think more and more people are getting used to knowing that, okay, tornado warnings means a tornado warning can happen at any time. Then the spotted tornado warning means, okay, this is a real deal thing, no more waiting around. And then the PDS or the emergency, tornado emergency, either way, really heightens the awareness. PDS Watch has helped too, helping the public know that this is a day that you have to pay attention even more so than you would on a normal severe weather day. Those kinds of things, and more information is better. In some points, the public may not understand enough, but there's other points that we don't give the public enough credit. And so when you can give more information and explain the difference between those types of days and those types of warnings, at least some people will take that into account with their plans and keep themselves safer. So that's really the bottom line. That all of these things done by the National Weather Service are trying to keep more and more people safe. And then on the broadcasting side of things, the tone changes.
A tornado emergency is issued when a community is in danger of significant damage or loss of life. The first tornado emergency was issued on May 3, 1999, during the devastating F5 twister in Moore, Oklahoma. After all these years, would you think the public is pretty sure what the alert is?
That could be. Again, there's a little different wording. Again, emergency, it's up front, tornado emergency, you're not going to have to, it's literally almost right at the beginning of the product after you get past some of the just communication stuff at the very top of the product. So if it's showing up on their phone, as a wireless emergency alert, if it's showing up on, an app, if they're looking at something on their phone or on their computer, it's fairly easy to find. And the word emergency does convey something also.
If I were to hear something declared as an emergency, a tornado emergency, boy, that would get my attention. But I am also clear that I'm not the average person anymore in regard to listening to these messages. So I think basically we will need to see where those chips fall. I don't think we're doing any harm in using these terms, or I suspect at least that there's no harm being done, but whether it's being especially useful for people, we'll have to wait and see.
It's one of the better phrases that has come out of the tiered warnings system, in that you know what that means. If there is a tornado emergency, there's a tornado in progress in a town, you know that that's a really bad thing. Whether you're in that town, near that town, or watching on the national media, you know that that's a different day.
On busy, severe weather days, alerts can come so often that they quickly become too much for someone to keep track of. So we quizzed our unsuspecting men and women on the street. What is a watch, warning, and advisory?
A watch means that we just need to be wary of something coming our way. A warning means there's actually something that has been spotted in our area that we need to be concerned about.
Well, a watch indicates that the conditions are good for something to happen. So a tornado watch would be conditions are nice or ripe for a tornado to happen. A warning indicates that it is in the area and it's more severe. An advisory, I'm going to have to guess on that. I'm going to just say that we're looking forward and we're anticipating possible warnings or watches.
A watch means that it is possible, and a warning means that it could be evident, I guess.
So an advisory is just like a heads up. A watch is it may be coming in your area, but you don't really know. And a warning is it's actually in the area, and you should really be watching out for it.
A watch means it could happen. A warning means it's coming, and I don't know what an advisory is. That's something new.
A watch is, again, that there's the potential. A warning is that there's something has been spotted. An advisory is just be careful that there may be something arising in your area.
While Bob knew the difference between all three, does meteorologist Gary Zitkowski think the average person has figured out what each of them are?
No. That's an easy one. I mean, I think that people will probably tend to treat a warning a little higher than the others, but otherwise, no. I mean, I think again, it goes back to we're competing with a lot of other information that people have to deal with, even if it's other weather-related information, but then also just real life. And for us to expect them to understand the nuance between a watch and a warning and an advisory. Despite all the preparedness and all the outreach, we still know that people, we may go from a watch to an advisory, and people think, oh, okay, the system's downgraded. It's not as bad as it might have been, and it turns out to still be pretty significant. And some people are just like, well, you said it wasn't going to be so bad, and then it wound up being, pretty bad, And technically we would say, the meteorologists say, well, a watch can go to either a warning or an advisory, so there's technically you shouldn't be inferring any type of upgrade or downgrade. But that's what people do. They're reading, they're trying to do pattern recognition, they're trying to understand.
People still ask me what the difference is all the time. And so we I spend hours every week talking to myself, it feels like, about what a watch means versus a warning, and when you need to seek shelter and when you need to pay attention. And yet, invariably, that's the question I get. Well, what really is the difference? So all we can do is keep trying to teach. The more people that hear that information, maybe the better it will be in the long run. But is it 100% correct now? No.
The storm siren has been around for decades. We know from episode 14 of Tornado Talk that some people rely on them, while others believe they are old and antiquated. Since our respondents are scattered from coast to coast, we wanted to find out if they lived near one, and if so, how did they react when hearing them sound?
The only siren I have in my area is actually at the local golf club, and it's really just for lightning within 10 miles of them. So
no, we don't, because we live in the country.
Yeah, we got a siren. When it blows means I better get in the house.
Maybe?
I'm not sure.
Okay. We do.
What do we do when you hear them?
You should be watching for something like a severe weather, usually a tornado.
While not all of the people knew if they had sirens in their area, even if they did, there tends to be confusion based on where you live. Some emergency managers sound the sirens for high winds, while others only turn them on when a tornado threatens. Dr. Susan Jasko doesn't think it's easy for the public to be so sure what that siren means.
I think that there's certainly the potential for a lot of confusion because people are fairly mobile. And they move across counties and jurisdictions all the time. And then you look at people who sort of travel for a living, whether it's for sales or they're transporting goods or whatever. And the difference is, like if you're moving across an area, then clearly that would be hard to track and almost impossible. I often worry also about the way we signal location using things like counties, where, honest to Pete, like an awful lot of people can't even tell you the county they live in most of the time. Never mind what the other counties might be surrounding them. And I know myself when I travel, if I'm traveling through an area, I may have like that county in my head, maybe. But after that, if I hear a warning, it happened one time when I landed in Norman, about a tornado watch was up, and they were watching a storm coming from one direction to another direction. And I just thought, wait, what county is where? And where am I? And is it moving towards me or is it not moving towards me? That stuff is confusing.
Once you hear the sound of a siren or receive a warning, it's only effective if you react. Sometimes the best indicator is boiling clouds in the sky. Where do you take shelter if bad weather is coming?
It depends. If it's a tornado, you should be going into a basement or making sure that there's a bunch of walls around you and cover yourself. If it's like a thunderstorm, you really don't do anything. If it's snow, you just kind of stay inside, make sure you have everything, all the kind of food you need and everything, and then when it's done, shovel it up.
If I'm at home, I go into, there's an area, a closet just below the stairs in the house, and that's actually the lowest point and, it's interior of the house away from windows. If I'm at the office, we actually have drills, and there's actually an interior corridor that doesn't have windows and has concrete block construction around it, so it's a good, safe place.
In my basement?
The safest place is actually under the stairs. There's no windows or anything in there. If I had a basement, that would be the place to go, but I don't. And if I had enough time, I would go under the house possibly, but I'm guessing that normally I won't have time to do that.
Basement.
We live in the country, don't have a basement, so we have to seek shelter in a well pit, which is close to the house and available.
We know how vital it is to have a plan of action when a tornado threatens your home or workplace. But what if you were driving or outside and away from home when a tornado approached? Would you know what to do?
If I'm in my car, I think I'm going to just hope that there's a road going away from where the tornado is so I can just turn around and go, because I really haven't decided if getting out of my car to get into a ditch is a better option or not.
Go get under a bridge or get in a ditch.
I would try to pull over and stay and be in a low place.
If I'm driving, depending on how severe, I might pull over. If I'm not in a car, I would get away from trees and power lines.
If you're not near a sturdy shelter, I know you're supposed to go to a low area, like if there's a ditch around or some area, I don't know, maybe there's some shelter from, I don't know. but try to look for some place that doesn't have anything that could fall on you or anything that could blow and hit you during that type of storm.
It's clear that it's not so clear what to do when a tornado is approaching while you're driving or outdoors. Dr. Susan Jasko says she has some ideas how to improve leading people to safety.
I think two things are really difficult there. One, it's the car thing, right? What do you do while you're driving? Especially if you're in an area you don't know particularly well. It may be someplace you even drive through on a daily basis, but if it were really an emergency that you were to, say, have to get off the road and seek shelter, you might not know what the options are to open to you. And so I think trying to communicate almost any specific behavior to people is tough, since people are getting your message, thanks to modern technologies, right, under a wide range of circumstances. And as the broadcaster or as the messenger, you can't know where a person is or what their circumstances are when they're going to hear what you're suggesting that they do. So it's kind of a boondoggle in terms of messaging, right? How do we tell people what to do? One solution would be to give them a range of options. If you're in a sturdy building, go to a center location or go to the lowest floor. If you're in your car, and it's safe to do so, pull over. And if you spot a sturdy structure, for example. But man, I think this is one of the hardest knots for us. And one other solution to that, of course, would be a stronger community-based educational venue of some kind, a way to get, I would start with children personally, right? Because I think kids they're sponges, and the younger they are, the more sponge-like they are. And they will often communicate to their families what they've learned about things like this.
At one time, radio and television were the only places to get details on severe weather. Now there are multiple ways. In 2017, our On-the-Spot reporters sought to find out how the public gets alerted.
Mainly from television.
Now I seem to be getting a lot of them on my phone because they come instantly, and I have that available right away. I do also, if I have the radio on, I'm going to hear them there, and the TV, but I would say I get a lot of them on the phone.
We get some on notifications through my phone, and then I have a very good friend who is a meteorologist, and often she takes care of me and lets me know if there's something serious in my area.
Radio, TV.
My phone, it pops up. Or my husband, who likes the weather.
If I'm at home and I'm watching TV, I'll get it from TV, but generally from my cell phone, which actually gets the weather updates automatically, so it will alert me. My cell phone's with me 24/7.
Typically the Weather Channel.
And that answer makes the Weather Channel meteorologist Mark Elliott happy to hear. But what concerns him is the social media platforms the public uses for breaking weather information.
So what's great is that there's now lots of options to get watches and warnings. The biggest problem is for people that like to rely on social media for all of their warnings. The biggest problem for me that I've noticed is the algorithms that some social media uses, including Facebook. Not everything comes in chronological order. So there will be watches or warnings put out in the social space that then come across your feed and look like it's in real time, but it's not. So you're getting it late, and then you're taking action on something that may already be done, or for an area that you're not in anymore, something like that. On the other side of it, you can say subscribe on Twitter to get alerts from NWS Tornado, which literally puts out every single tornado warning with how many schools are at play and how many population numbers are involved in that warning, and real information, and that does come in real time if you subscribe to it.
Gary Sitkowski can't stress enough how vital it is to know what source is giving you your weather information.
I just tell people to find a trusted weather source, and it could be a TV station, it could be a radio station, it could be their local NWS office, it could be a commercial weather provider, it could be an app that, from any of those sources. I mean, people need to find whatever source that they feel delivers a reliable set of information, and that, and I say that based on the fact that they've kind of been using them for a while and they feel like they convey it. They tell it to them the way they want to hear it, the way they can understand it. They talk about the things that are important to them.
Susan Jasko says her study shows where you search for weather information is largely dependent on what your age is.
I can tell you that a bunch of the research has been pointing in a couple of directions strongly. And one is that there is no uniform place that people get information. One of the dividing factors here has to do with age. And so people, I want to say it's over 40, but it might be closer to 50 these days, tend to lean towards traditional media, especially television and broadcast news, what we used to call broadcast news anyway, and radio. And that young people, the people I would teach as undergraduates and high school students and junior high students, that age range, they actually, although they use some social media, they really are much more attentive to and respond better to messages that are texted to them, especially by friends or family. So despite their wildness, their wild ways in which they are interconnected, or we think of them as connected these days, it's still, interestingly for them, an interpersonal connection that's facilitated through an electronic technology, their cell phones, that really has the most impact on them.
There's nothing more frustrating than canceling plans due to a threat of severe weather that never happens. A weather personality on TV can become a target when regular programming is interrupted or a forecast winds up being completely wrong. We once again put our microphones in your face to find out if you look for someone to blame when the weather forecast busts.
In jest, I do. I don't ultimately think it's their fault, but it's fun to have somebody to blame.
No.
Absolutely not. I think they're trying to keep us safe, and just because they maybe interrupt a program or anything else, that it's their job to try to warn us of anything that might be coming, and I don't blame them at all.
No, I mean, it's all computer modeling and based on experience, and sometimes they get it right and sometimes they may miss it a bit, but nature does what nature does?
Absolutely not, but I give them credit for the good weather.
Well, it could be either the model or it could be the weather person, so it really depends. I do give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
2 out of 7 folks on the street felt it was fun to take out frustration on the weatherman. In March of 2017, a winter storm in the Northeast didn't pan out like the National Weather Service thought it would. That drew sharp criticism from New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
A pollster called me today and tell me that being a weatherman, if you compare that to being a pollster, it would be like a pollster saying to me the night before an election, Governor, you could get 60% tomorrow night or 35% or someplace in between. And then they still get paid. I wouldn't pay a pollster for that kind of prediction. I don't know about how well we should be paying these weather guys. I've had my fill after 7.5 years in National Weather Service, to tell you the truth.
Gary Zutkowski took exception to those remarks. As the former chief meteorologist in Mount Holly, he knows how challenging winter weather forecasting can be. In an email, he wrote, quote, "It's a great disappointment to hear the governor speak that way about the National Weather Service. The Mount Holly office is a highly regarded office with the National Weather Service and deserves better treatment than that. And considering the outstanding forecast service by the National Weather Service during Sandy and the disastrous way New Jersey mishandled using that information, I'd expect a more responsible perspective from my governor," end quote.
The reason why you see this kind of reaction, and again, I do want a grown-up reaction, and when I get something less than a grown-up reaction, like what happened with Governor Christie earlier this year, it's gonna draw a reaction from me. But I've been critical of the governor of New York. I've been critical of the governor of Georgia. So it's not a New Jersey thing. I've been critical of the mayor of New York City. So I can be critical. That's not it's not just focused on one or two individuals, but it's when the commentary about the National Weather Service in particular, but also just the weather enterprise in general, gets out of line. That they have gone too far, that they have made some statements that are blatantly either inaccurate or unfair. I think the other politicians, it's okay to bust their chops. That's part of their job description. If they can't handle that, they shouldn't be a politician.
Dr. Susan Jasko thinks political figures throwing qualified forecasters under the bus is a real problem.
I know from my work with the National Weather Service that, of course, it puts them in a very difficult situation. They cannot just come out and criticize or themselves assign blame or even say that person is lying, right, when that person is a politician or a member of the government. And so this is really a difficult problem that's arisen because so much is at stake with the decision-making that's done. And the example you gave to me with Gary and the governor of New Jersey is a really very vivid illustration of the problem. That there needs to be blame placed, right? And of course, most people want to make sure the blame doesn't fall on them, and maybe politicians more than the average person.
Choosing a reliable source for what to do and how to get severe weather information could be life-saving, and ultimately, Mark Elliott says, that's most important.
Because the platforms that are out there make everyone equal to some degree, that not everyone knows the source of their forecast. You can get, not to jump on the fake news bandwagon, but that term fake news came because of purposefully deceitful news stories, mostly during the past election cycle, that were made to look as if they were, say, for example, coming out of CBS, but it was really, CBS.ga.url. something else, but the branding looked the same and the style of the news looked the same, even though it really wasn't from a source that people actually should be trusting. You could make the same argument, and really weather has been fighting this kind of fake news thing for years and years and years now. There are weather enthusiasts that put out forecasts. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. We all were that before getting full training, but it is not the same forecast as someone that does have the full training.
Data, stories, alerts, text, tweets, snaps, email, phone calls. It's a lot of chatter to cut through. Gary Sikowski knows that. Even though he has retired from his position, he envisions how communication can be improved.
I think we need to get better at sort of pivoting from talking about a tornado watch or a tornado warning to what does that mean? What do I need to know? What do I need to be doing in the next 5 minutes? Or what do I need to be doing in the next 2 or 3 hours if it's a watch? The Weather Enterprise, I think, still has a journey to go in terms of making that pivot very, as quickly as possible toward impacts, and then talking, talking as a human, as opposed to like as a uber geek or as a super scientist. Just talk like you would if you were telling a family member or a friend what they had to worry about for an upcoming event. Talk like that in general. When you're talking to other, scientific experts, you wander into the jargon as far as you want to go. But I think that for the Weather Enterprise, for these high impact events, we need to drop the jargon as quickly as possible and talk to people as we would counsel a friend or a family member who was worried about an upcoming weather event.
Tornado Talk is written, researched, and produced by Jennifer Nairmore and Dan Holliday with assistance from Brandon Molyneux. Our thanks to Brenda, Bob, Craig, Dustin, Carrie Lynn, Liz, and Tori, who gave us their insight and opinions from across the country. We explore and investigate nature's most fascinating phenomenon on every episode of Tornado Talk. Subscribe on iTunes and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Catch up on past episodes by binge listening anytime online at tornadotalk.com.